Next up, we're going to add a new page to our web application. To do this, we're going to use the request object, and we're going to use a pretty easy if statement, and we're going to look at the path of the incoming request, and we're going to decide what page to render. But before we get to that part, the first thing I want to do is I want to actually make sure that we have the HTML for both pages rendering correctly. That way when we actually get to the part where we're differentiating between the two different pages, we'll know for sure that this part is right. So to do this, I'm going to jump to this line where we write our HTML, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and then I'm going to comment out the existing one. So inside of the second one, we're going to write whatever HTML we want to be on the contact page. So in this case, I wanted to say, to get in touch, please send an email to... All right, so the first thing you'll notice is that when we put this quote here, it cancels out our quotations for our string. So we don't want to do that. So this first thing I'm going to do is put a backslash here, and this will tell our string that this quote is the quote character we want to be inside of our string, and we're not closing the string at. So we'll do this again for the closing quote. So this is going to be mail to support@lenslocked.com. And then after the href tag, we are going to make the actual text of our link be support@lenslocked.com. Then we'll close our a tag and put a period. So when we finally get to the end of our application, we won't be writing HTML inside of strings like this. But for now, we're just doing it just so you can get a feel for how everything works. So once we have this working, we are going to go ahead and I'm going to check out into 3.2 a simple router. And we're going to go run our code. And we can visit the page, and you can see that now it says to get in touch, please send an email to support@lenslocked.com. So that's what we want it to be. So we now know that we have our the HTML for both pages working correctly. So now if we uncomment both, you'll notice that when we restart our application, it renders both. We want to do something that will allow us to decide which of these two things we're going to render. And this is where the if statement comes in. But before I just sort of jump in and show it to you, I want to actually show you how I came about finding, how I decided what I'm going to use to differentiate between the two pages. So we're going to go to the documentation, and we're going to find the net HTTP Golang docs. We'll go in here, and we'll go to the index again, and we're going to go down to the request object. So we'll click on the request object, and we'll start looking at different parts of it to sort of see what might make sense. The first thing that sticks out to me is this URL part. So the URL is specifying the URI being requested for server requests or the URL to access for client requests. So we're doing a server request right now. We're handling incoming requests. So the fact that this actually specifies the URI, that sounds like what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this URL object. And once I click into the URL, here I'm looking for the path. I'm looking for something that will allow me to find, whatever path the user is trying to request, so that we can determine, what page to show them. Going down through this, it looks like this has a path field and a raw path field. And these docs will actually tell you a little bit about the two and how they're different. The biggest difference is that the path field will have the decoded form, which means that URL encoded values, which are these % type values, there's certain characters that can't go in the URL. So to represent them, people use these encoded versions of it. And you can Google online and find out what URL encoded values are. You can see how to URL encode things. But for now, we're not going to focus on that. What I will say is that if you were to build your own router, this sort of detail might become important. But because we're doing something very basic right now, we don't actually have to worry about this. We aren't going to have anything where slashes or other weird characters are going to change. All we have is the home page and the contact page. So it looks like this path field is what we want. So to access that, we can go back to our code, and I'm just going to print line this to the console, and I'm going to put r.url. That's the first thing we mentioned, and then once we have the URL, we want the path. So this will print out the path. It's only going to print it out to I'm gonna actually change this to fprint, and we're gonna print it out to W. So we're gonna comment out these 2 lines, and we're just gonna print out the path to the page whenever we visit it. So by doing this, we can actually stop our server, restart it, and we can go back to our page. And once we're here, sorry, I'm scrolling through my notes. Once we're at the page, we can refresh and we'll see the path. So you can see that when there's no path, it defaults to the slash. This is actually really handy down the road, but we can also do like /dog, and it shows us /dog as our path. We can do /dog /cat, and we can do /contact. So all of these update the path. So it looks like this is what we want. This /path is giving us the correct path. So we go back to our code. Now we want to actually use this r.url.path. We want to use that to decide which of these 2 pages to render. So we know that the home page is when we have just the slash path. It's the root path. So we're going to do if r.url.path is equal to slash. This means we're on the home page. In this case, we're going to take the print line that we have for the home page. Welcome to my awesome site. Otherwise, we're going to do else if r.url.path equals /contact. And in this case, we're going to print out the contact page. So we'll copy that and paste it up here. And now we'll delete these 2 lines. So the other thing to note is that when we do this, this means that if it doesn't match one of these 2 paths, it's not going to show anything. It's just going to be an empty page because this format.fprintline will never be called. But let's go ahead and stop the server, restart it, and refresh. You can see the /contact page shows the contact HTML. The home page shows the welcome to my awesome site. And if we go to /dog, we don't see anything. It's just an empty page. So that's all we want right now for our really basic router. In the next video, we're going to add a 404 page, which is that page that shows up whenever they don't go to a path that's valid. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just leave this at this part. So the last thing we want to do is we want to take our code and we want to commit it. So we can see that we've got main.go. I can diff and I can see that we've added this code here. I mean, you can see that we've added the if statement and the print lines inside of them. It shows the print line up, or the print statement up top, being removed because it was actually moved. And the only things they show here is like removals and adds. So it was removed from here and it was added again back here. So that's why it looks like it was removed. All right, so that looks right. Looks like our diff doesn't have anything we're not expecting. So we'll add that file and we'll say added a contact page. So now we can check out master and we can merge in this branch. All right, that looks about where we want to be. Now we can push this to origin. So this will get pushed to GitLab or wherever you're storing it, GitHub, whatever. And once that is done, we are ready to move on to the next video and create the 404 page.